Many persons are hampered in their efforts to become more self-aware and their efforts to reintegrate disowned elements of their personality. Many persons are hampered by the notion that there are such things as inherently evil thoughts or inherently evil emotions. And by evil thoughts or evil emotions, I mean thoughts and emotions which, simply by virtue of their presence, constitute evidence of one's immorality, sinfulness, or depravity. If I think this, I am no good. If I feel this, I am damned. Now, at least in the Western world, if we think in historical terms, to me it seems very clear that the single historical force most responsible for the dissemination of the notion of evil thoughts and evil emotions is, of course, Christianity. I touched on that briefly in the Disown Self. And very briefly, I want to exemplify one or two instances to support my observation. One of the cardinal teachings of Jesus, as reported in the most authoritative source available, the so-called synoptic gospels, is that people must, quote, believe in me, unquote, which evidently means believe that Jesus is the anointed, believe that he is the Son of God, believe in and accept his claims to divinity or semi-divinity. And in the Gospels, it's made clear that he presents this as a demand. People must believe in me. He does not offer any justification for this demand, nor for any of his other precepts beyond announcing that, quote, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, unquote, and that those who believe in him and obey his precepts will be rewarded in heaven, while those who disbelieve and disobey will be condemned to suffer, will have, quote, weeping and gnashing of teeth, unquote. So what are offered are not rational arguments, but in effect threats and promises. You better believe in me. You better believe I am the anointed one. If you do, it's going to be terrific in heaven. And if you don't, you have some very unpleasant punishment awaiting you. Well, I think we can agree that that is not exactly an appeal to reason. Now, this approach to morality, so highly subversive of reason, permeates Christian teaching. For example, holding that disbelief in Jesus and his teachings is a most profound sin, and that infidels should be forced to believe, that heresy should not be tolerated. Thomas Aquinas, who was without doubt, I think, the greatest mind in the church, Thomas Aquinas maintained that heretics who revert to the true doctrine, and that is to say Christianity, and then relapse again, should be received into penitence and then killed. Now here we deal with beliefs. If you find yourself unable to believe in the teachings of Christianity, after trying to, if you say you're sorry, we'll receive you into penitence, but you're still a no-good rat and we're going to kill you. For the scholars present, this is from the Summa Theologica. Now, a legacy of this doctrine in the present age is that beliefs can be commanded in and out of existence by an act of will. And of course, parents certainly teach that to children. If you're good, you believe. If you don't believe, you're no good. How do you go about believing if you can't believe? You just do it. And here again, I think of examples of clients who were brought up in religious homes and who would report painful experiences with parents, with priests, with ministers, in schools run by religious. And when they would ask questions or have difficulty in accepting certain beliefs, There's never an answer to the question, how do you believe something you can't believe? Except pray for grace. Or better still, you better or else. So here is the notion that you can command beliefs. Now, I don't think it needs to be argued to this audience that thoughts as such cannot be immoral. They can only be correct or mistaken. They can be right or wrong, true or false. But a thought cannot be immoral. If you want to talk about immorality, then I would say to accept beliefs without regard for reason, knowledge, evidence, probability, or respect for facts, now I would be willing to call that immoral. But that's just what Christianity demands. Reason and our psychological well-being require that we be free to consider, evaluate, and accept or reject any idea in accordance with our understanding of the facts. But if you want to go back to orthodox positions, this is forbidden. Now, moving from the area of thoughts to the area of feelings, Jesus had interesting things to say about sinful emotions. For example, at one point he says, "Ye have heard it said by men of old time, Thou shalt not kill. But I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment." So if you get angry and you don't have a good reason, you're in trouble, morally. Elsewhere, he utters his famous statement to the effect that not only is the act of adultery evil, but that adulterous desires are evil. Now, pause on that thought for a moment. If you're told that if you have certain desires, even if you don't act on them, the mere fact that you've got them is evidence of your immorality, can we agree that that's not conducive to making you want to be aware of those desires? Who wants to be aware of the incontrovertible evidence of his immorality? Now, I want to mention that these two doctrines are not incidental to Christianity, namely the doctrines of immoral beliefs or immoral feelings. They lie at the very heart of Jesus' teachings. If you're interested in further documentation and a very excellent discussion and critique of this whole area, I'd like to refer you to a book by Richard Robinson called An Atheist's Values, published by Oxford University Press. Now, I don't want to leave the implication that the notion of evil thoughts and evil emotions was originated by Christianity. Doubtless, it is as old as the belief that there are supernatural beings who have the power to read men's minds and hearts and may take offense at what they find there. Now, today, with or without a belief in religion and the supernatural, today the notion of evil thoughts and evil emotions is still very pervasive in our culture, and its impact on psychological well-being is truly devastating. On the one hand, it generates guilt, and on the other hand, it sabotages human beings' efforts at self-awareness. As I said earlier, you cannot pursue self-investigation with a gun aimed at your head. Self-awareness requires an ability to approach the content of one's inner experience as a non-critical observer, an observer interested in noting and describing facts, not in pronouncing moral judgments. This is not a counsel to abandon morality, but to recognize its destructive misuse in this context. To approach an investigation of one's inner experience with the question, what does it signify about my moral worth if I have such and such thoughts or such and such emotions, is to make the censorship of one's perceptions a foregone conclusion. Now, as you may know, I have had rather a lot of experience with students of objectivism. And I am sorry to say that I have seen many examples of this problem there, of the attitude that if I have certain feelings on the one hand, or if I don't have certain feelings on the other hand, it's curtains.